I'm back. Welcome to my channel, Lunatic Plays, and all my windows are now here. I will bring them. 1 second. But I'm Luna. Hi, how are you? Who are you? If you're here, let me know. Cities? Yeah. Can you see them? What's the story with the graphics? I don't know what the fuck is going on with this game, but I feel like a little while ago something happened and I just can't get the game to look normal. Like, it's all blurry and weird looking, and Honestly, I kind of, I'm a bit lost what I can do. No, this is horrible. I hate it. Why does it look like this? It happened, like, I don't know what happened. I had the settings done okay, like, I was okay with it. And then something happened and now I'm no longer okay with it. And I can't get it to look right. And I'm really lost on what it could be. High quality, yeah, everything seems right. But how do I fix it? How do I make it look okay? Something isn't right. Is this better? Is it better? I feel like it's maybe a little bit better. Right. Anyways, hi guys, I'm here. How is everyone? I missed my stream yesterday. I was so tired. Like, I don't know what's going on lately. My energy is like all over the place. My energy is completely out of whack. I am tired all of the time. I nap, I sleep. That's why also I'm not on camera today, because I'm really tired and I don't want to be on the camera. Sorry. I'll come back one day. Here's what I did though. I was trying to decorate. I was trying to detail. I did this. I like all the little umbrellas, all the little stuff. I added these little decorative fences here on the balconies. I added the kind of like decals, just to differentiate the floor from the roof, so it's not all like this plain concrete kind of vibe. I added like the surfaces and stuff, some props. Here I did like a car shop. I feel like we needed one. It's Uber. It's the only thing like related to cars that I had for like posters and advertisements wise. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna stick an Uber on it. this is an Uber car shop. Use your imagination, right? And here it is. Yeah, I was doing these little fences, little green spots. I added the docks. Obviously, there's no ships right now, but Bridges and Ports is coming out soon. So once that's out, we are gonna be able to have a kind of like a water bus, basically service, but it's basically like a ferry that kind of just like goes around your rivers and stuff, and you can go from like one point to another. So I'm gonna have a sort of like a ferry gondola type of business here, and hopefully we're gonna have some yacht and boat and sailing boat models that we can put all around here, and that's my plan. I'm gonna continue on building. Ima, hi. How are you? I'm gonna continue on building because we obviously have the upper part to do as well, like surfaces and stuff. And then I have to do curbs over here. And honestly, I wanted to be done with with this yesterday, but I'm not. So I'm just gonna be rushing through it. At this point, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to release this episode, but I'll do what I can. And I'm not gonna stress myself over it. I have enough stress in my life. Yeah, lots of work. I think like the bottom part will be done. Hopefully I can do like the top part today. Maybe if I'm fast enough, I'll do the parking lot as well. But I don't know. I feel like I'm still gonna be doing stuff tomorrow. So that leaves me just Monday and Tuesday for editing. which is gonna be interesting because Wednesday the DLC drops, which means a new update drops, which means the game will stop working. So if I am not done with the episode before Wednesday, it means it's not coming out until at least mid-November. But whatever. I refuse to be stressed. I feel like I've been running in circles and I feel like a hamster in a wheel, and I am not going to feel like this anymore. Yeah, the schedule is not scheduling. At least I'm not delivering as I would like to deliver. But it is what it is. And for our video that we're gonna be watching today, I saw a really cool thing on a real life historian walking through Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Victorian London, and commenting on it. And I saw a couple of minutes of it. Okay, I might have seen half of it, but it's really cool. So I really want to see the whole thing, but I'll play it from the beginning for you guys. So, Victorian London Assassin's Creed Syndicate with a historian. Cause it was really cool. Like, I really liked
Inigo
her.
Jones as a
I really liked her shtick, so I would love to see it again. Also, like, I was watching it, I was doing something, so like I wasn't really paying attention. I think I was watching it while I was working, so I wouldn't mind now as I'm building this to also watch this video with you guys. A little bit of history to start, and then I have another thing that I just found. Do you guys remember there was a girl like in the early days of YouTube, and she was one of those living dolls type of girls. Her name was Venus Angelic or something like that, and she was like known for doing like makeup tutorials to look like basically a living doll, and she wanted to be a Japanese idol, and she was like obsessed with Japanese Lolita thing, basically stereotyping like Japanese pop culture and making it her whole personality, which honestly, I'm not judging because I've done that. Like, I've been a weeaboo. I have been a weeaboo once upon a time, and then being a weeaboo prompted me to actually learn Japanese as a language, and that kind of like exposed me to more actual culture and history of Japan, which really fascinated me and helped me to not be a weeaboo anymore. But she had some scandals for having like a really toxic mom, and I came across a video of a YouTuber doing a deep dive on that, and I was sort of watching it before the live stream. So after we do the historian London from a historian's perspective, we're gonna watch the deep dive on Venus Angelique, because honestly, I need to watch it. Like, I watched a little bit of it, but I'll play it from the beginning. It's fine. I want you guys to participate in this. So we have a lot of stuff to cover today. Let's just get into it. Bim, bam, boom. Historian London in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, as watched and talked about by a real-life historian. Here we go.
So Spitalfields Market is
it
based
loud
in
enough?
an area, it's London's East End, but it's based in an area called Whitechapel. But there's more going on in Whitechapel than Jack the Ripper.
Is the screen wide enough? Should I make it bigger, or is everything good? Like, Ima, you can tell me. Yeah, it's good? Okay.
The thing that gave it its brightness was arsenic. The most important thing to know about Big Ben, and I tell everyone this, is that the tower is not called Big Ben. Hi, my name is Louise Crick. I'm a public historian and I give historical guided tours around London. And that is why I'm so excited today, because we are going back in time to explore Victorian London thanks to game footage from Assassin's Creed Syndicate. So we'll be starting off in Westminster with some of the big hitters like Buckingham Palace, Westminster Abbey, Houses of Parliament, before heading over towards Covent Garden via Trafalgar Square, and then hopping on a boat into the City of London, where we'll see St Paul's Cathedral and the Royal Exchange, before finishing over in the East End by Spitalfields Market in Whitechapel. Now it's going to be really exciting to see sort of how accurate this is to Victorian London and also how it compares to today. So yeah, let's get started.
I'm really excited for it. The arsenic thing I know, because Victorians, they love their bright color green, and that's where the arsenic came in. Like the way that they got this really bright green, they call it like the emerald green, I think. The way that they got it was through arsenic, and it was everywhere. Upholstery, dresses, tapestry, and there was wallpaper. Everywhere. It was literally everywhere, all over Victorian homes. And then a whole bunch of people got sick and a whole bunch of people died. And they realized that it was poisonous. Is it King Cross?
Really apt that we're starting
Victoria
at a railway station,
No.
because railways are very, very important to Victorian London. They're pretty much, like, Victorian London and Victorian Britain is synonymous with railways.
Hi Raven, just in time for a history class.
Should say the Assassin's Creed Syndicate is based in, or set in 1868, which is a really exciting time in the 19th century. It's slap bang in the middle of the reign of Queen Victoria. That's where we get the name, the Victorian period or the Victorian era from. So she was queen at that time, one of the longest reigning monarchs ever, really, I believe. She became queen in 1837 and reigned all the way up to her death in 1901. London saw massive growth in this period. The population alone, somewhere is around about 1801, the population is roughly about 1 million in London, and 100 years later, it's got all the way up to about, figures vary, but all the way up to about 7 million. There's huge, huge growth in that time. And it's thanks to industrialization and railways that happens, because suddenly people are allowed to move around and you can work in London without living in central London. So you have things like suburbs are created because you can live outside of London and travel in. And that's why London just absolutely sort of booms at this time. LB and SCR, which is London, Brighton and South Coast Rail. So we know we're at Victoria Station because we've got the London, Brighton and South Coast Rail. That is one of the companies that ran in and out of Victoria Station. And Victoria Station was kind of known as, it's like, well, it was meant to be sort of the leisure station. It was where you went, you know, get to the South Coast and have a good time there. And evidence of this can still be found today in Victoria Station. Let's say one thing that feels pretty unrealistic about this so far is the fact that there's sunshine and it's really sunny. That's not a common occurrence in London.
Actually, honestly, when I went to London, and okay, bear in mind, like I did go there in the summer, but I was actually surprised at how warm it was because, well, I mean, I came from Dublin, so maybe my point of reference is a little bit out of whack. But I noticed that there was a substantial weather and temperature improvement between London and Dublin when I went there. But the train station is giving me strong Harry Potter vibes.
Here's something you'll still see today. Pianos. We love a piano in a railway station. where people can just come up and start playing. That still happens today. That's pretty accurate. Barging in London, that happens a lot. I literally, on the way here today, was getting the tube and was getting barged about.
Yeah, this is true though. Like, okay, I've only been to London like a few times, but I don't have a very good reference. But I would say that I much prefer being in Ireland than being in England, because my experience of the people and like the interactions with just general public is that Irish people are so much nicer. Like, so much nicer. My main con for like ever leaving Ireland would be that people are just not as nice anywhere else. London has all the downsides of living in Ireland, like the weather, the kind of like grayness and grunginess of it all, and without the nice people. So yeah.
Oh, you can see the clock in the distance. You'll always see, I mean, this is just something that you'll see at most train stations, a good big clock. And it's funny, it was interesting.
This looks like the place in one of the Harry Potter movies. In the fifth movie where Sirius walks Harry back to the station. But that was... Wait, was Victoria Station renamed to King's Cross Station? Is it the same place? Or do they just look the same because it was the architectural thing? That's what I want to know.
I love this fact a lot, is that rail travel actually influenced time itself. It's hard to believe, but before railway stations, even within Britain, time was localized. Even up to the 1840s, Bristol was 10 minutes behind London. They had different time zones. I believe Bristol Temple Mead Station still has a clock where you can see GMT.
I've seen that. I was in I think it was one of my history classes, when we were talking about pre-Victorian times. It was that Dublin was 30 minutes behind or ahead. Like, there was the 30 minutes difference between London and Dublin.
Greenwich Mean Time, and also local time, the old local time.
Yeah, well, there was very little international activity happening. like on a scale of today, it's incomparable. You know, you cannot compare it.
This looks very, very different to trains nowadays, as you may well know. The Victorians loved a class system. So you have the first, second, and third class carriages on trains. Oh wait, hang on. Can we see her in the green and the hat? She is glaring at that child. I don't know what the child's done. She's not happy about it. Anyway, sorry, what was my point? Where was I? Right, okay, so this could be second class, I think, maybe. It still is quite nice. You've got nice upholstered seats. It's more like sofas that you would see in someone's front room at the time. And you would get sort of dining carts, like nice sort of dining carts on these early trains. Second class, you'd get, slightly less nice seating. And initially, I think a little earlier than this period, the third class was like, you were lucky if you had a roof to your carriage.
Jesus.
They would sometimes be open carriages. I don't know if this happened in London as much, but I mean, literally.
I can only imagine how many people got pushed out and died.
Open to the elements, and you just have some like wooden benches. That sort of very quickly, hopefully for safety reasons, that changed. But yes, they're very different to today. I think there were different designs of trains, and I feel like, oh, we're in a postal room. Hello. A postal carriage. I think Assassin's Creed has gone with this layout because it's probably easier for you then to like navigate and move around. But you did also have different layouts of trains where you had sort of individual compartments. Oh, here we go. We're in the dining car here. Like, look, they've got like nice fancy glasses and candlesticks. Like, surely having open flames on a train, a moving train, is not a good idea. But yeah, you'd have separate carriages. Basically think of the Hogwarts Express, like with the separate sort of compartments and seating areas within the carriage, with that like.
I mean, death in general in the Victorian society was a huge factor. Like even the fact how the families used to have 10, 15 children was because only maybe 2 or 3 out of these 15 children would survive until adulthood. Like infant and child mortality in those days was fucking crazy.
Thin, narrow corridor, a little hallway down the side. And you can see all the coal there and the guy working at the front, because obviously it's a steam train. It's all run by coal. Victorian London was basically run on coal. If you ever get a chance to go on a steam train, it's pretty fun. So first of all, you have we have the trains created and railways created above ground, and eventually London introduced the world's first underground railway, otherwise known today as the Tube, or we call it the Tube. It wasn't called that at the time though, initially. And that was opened in 1863. They opened the first underground railway. It was the Metropolitan Railway, today known as the Metropolitan Line, and it ran from Paddington to Farringdon. I should say though, not everyone was happy about train travel, especially the underground.
Yeah, the London tube system it's huge. I love mazes and I love figuring out public transport in new cities and stuff, but it was a little bit intimidating, like going in the first time. Especially like I always grew up in a small town, you know, I was never like a city person, so yeah.
Railway. All this modernisation and huge population growth, to the point that the city is getting so crowded and busy that we have to move underground, you know, where it's dirty, and that's where, like, you know, you bury your bodies underground and there's worms down there and dirt, I don't know. And also they were worried about all the fumes, probably quite rightly worried about the fumes. And there were even people who compared it to going down into the depths of hell. Like that's what's happened to society. We have been forced to go down deeper towards the depths of hell to build these undergrounds.
But you know what, actually, Ima, about you wanting to serve looks on a Victorian tea party. There are a couple of experiences like that happening today. I know there was some in Ireland, like there was a Victorian tea party bus. That was basically like a sightseeing tour on a double-decker bus, and the interior of the bus was redesigned to look like a Victorian cafe, and you got served like tea and cakes while the bus kind of takes you around on a trip of like really nice sights. But I heard that in England, I think that they have a Victorian train experience where you can go and like live out your Victorian train ride tea party fantasy. Yeah, if you want, we should go. But don't quote me on it. If it was somewhere else, not in England, I read about a train where that's possible. But I don't know where it is. I don't know the details. I have a memory of reading about it.
Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous, that scene with all the carriages and the horse and carts and all the people with their umbrellas? That's very London. I love it. London then, not London now. Less horses now.
Honestly, like that makes me want to play Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I'm a little bit intimidated by the Assassin's Creed series because there's so many of them. I kind of feel like maybe I should go in chronological order, but then I feel like if I was going to do that, I would never finish. So maybe I should just choose one that appeals to me and go for it. I actually have the one about ancient Egypt because I love ancient Egypt. But the graphics aren't as good because it's much older. But yeah, no, maybe I should give it a go.
And it's raining. There we go. Now this is London. Fantastic. Talking of horses, actually, Victorian London, 1860s, there would have been a lot of horses in London. Too many. Far too many horses in London.
Yeah, everywhere.
Hey, oh my God. Just trying to have a nice walk around London. I'm not even breaking any rules. Right, 19th century, 1860s, a lot of horses in London, like dangerous level of horses. Not really dangerous for humans unless you walk out in front of them like she just did, but dangerous for the horses. It's sort of a chicken and an egg situation. You had, as the 19th century progressed, carriages became a lot more easy to make and a lot more accessible. More people like in the middle classes could afford to have a carriage or to catch a carriage, get a carriage. Basically, long story short, lot of horses in London.
Actually, it's funny because in those days in Warsaw there was so many horses, so many carriages that it was estimated that by the mid 20th century Warsaw would literally drown in poo because there was so many horses and so much horse poo produced that it was estimated that if it was going to continue on like that, Warsaw would literally drown in poo, and that obviously ended with the invention of cars. But I get the reference of what she's saying.
Oh, look at that nice old fire engine. That's great. Fire engines would have been pulled by horses.
Oh,
And
I love it.
by the end of the 19th century, it's estimated that there were at least 200,000 horses in London. If you were a working horse in London, you had a pretty tough time, really tough time of it.
Yeah.
There was long hours, you're pulling heavy loads, they didn't treat their horses right. For the most part, they didn't treat their horses right. That's one thing I would say they maybe haven't nailed here is the horse poo. Where's the horse poo?
Yeah.
If you've got 50,000 horses roaming around London on a day-to-day basis, there was gonna be horse poo. There's something like, one horse will produce like 9 kilos of poo a day.
Oh, Jesus.
And about 2 pints of urine. So you're welcome for those facts. Keep those in your back pocket.
And now multiply that by 50,000, she said. Yikes.
One thing I've seen playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate is a lot of this green color, especially in the women's dresses, this like really vibrant green. Now I know that in the game, green is sort of what your allies wear, but I think there's something more to it. And if it is, that's like real like great detail that they've included. So in the Victorian period, this specific shade of very vibrant green was really popular. It was the trendy color. It was had a few different names. It basically looks like emerald green, but it was also known as Shields green. And it's a great color, very bright.
In Warsaw, they were trying to like brush it up and bring it out of Warsaw to the provinces, but it was accumulating quicker than they could carry it out. And that's why they estimated that Warsaw would be drowning in poo.
The only problem with it was that the thing that gave it its brightness was arsenic. And I think some people did eventually cotton on to that, and yet they still loved this color. Yes, here we go. We're at Buckingham Palace. We're just casually in the garden of Buckingham Palace.
Why not?
That's not really something that's possible today unless you're invited for an event. I doubt it was possible back then in the 1860s. So yes, Buckingham Palace is still today the home and headquarters of the reigning British monarch, although I believe King Charles III isn't actually currently living in Buckingham Palace. He and Queen Camilla are still in Clarence House. But technically speaking, this is his home, one of many. And it's full of staterooms. It's really where, like, back then and today, when you had important people come to visit, leaders of other countries, you know, you invite them to Buckingham Palace for a state dinner and to meet the royal family and all of that. Oh God, is that a foot guard on the roof? I'm not sure if you would have had guards on the roof, for sure. It's got something like 770 rooms in total, including bedrooms for the staff members as well, because obviously there's a lot of staff to maintain a palace this big, and something like close to 80 bathrooms. That's today, wow. And I imagine it was very similar back in the 1860s when the game is set.
That's crazy, 80 bathrooms. Imagine. And like even still today, for me, this is the crazy part about the monarchy system, because who has to maintain it? I mean, okay, I don't live in England or Britain. I don't pay taxes for them, but I can imagine like fucking everyday people, taxpayers have to maintain all this bullshit just because some bozo was born into a family that have maintained themselves for 1,000 years. Ugh.
It's built in a style that was very popular in the late Georgian, early Victorian period called neoclassical, which is basically where they're all just
Like, imagine, like, I'm sorry, guys, we're gonna have to increase the tax this year. The king needs another person to look after his 80 bathrooms. Meanwhile, the housing market is dead, and you cannot find a room for less than £1,000. But you're not gonna earn more than 30 a year.
fanning, like fangirling about ancient Greece, and they loved a column. That's why you'll see around London a lot. These guards are very much like if you go there today, you will see guards wearing, if not exactly this outfit, very similar to this outfit. They're foot guards, but I believe if they've got that white feather in their bearskin hat, then they are grenadier guards, and they have been situated, or basically they have been protecting the royal family and the royal palaces since the 17th century, from 1660 under Charles II. So yeah, you will see them there today.
It's crazy. Like on one side, like it's fascinating, yeah, the upholding of this kind of like tradition, and you can think about like these guards that have been protecting the king since the 1700s or whatever, and they've been dressed the same, and it's like generation to generation, you know, that tradition passed down and upkept and preserved. And it's so fascinating from even the time perspective to look at it, because it's like a window into the past, and you know, like I think it fulfills some sort of like aesthetic whimsy or wonder. But I always ask myself, like, is it worth it though? Like all these marble floors and the gold and the arts and the beautiful paintings and everything. Meanwhile, you have people starving and dying and nowhere to live at, you know? Like, is it worth it? It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's thought-provoking, but is it worth it? That's what I always ask myself.
Buckingham Palace is actually named after a duke, not a king or a queen. It's named after the Duke of Buckingham, who lived here about 300 years ago, or just over 300 years ago, from today, not from then. When back then it wasn't a palace, it was a house. I mean, a very nice house, but still not. It didn't resemble what we're seeing here and what we see today. Yeah. It was a fraction of that. It was just a very nice house near St. James's Palace, which is just up the road. And it was in the 1760s that King George III bought Buckingham House for his wife, Queen Charlotte, as sort of a house for her so that she could be close to St. James's Palace. But you can see it's so grand inside, even though it does look like they might be repeating some of the paintings, but I feel like we can forgive them for not creating original paintings every time. So grand, and that is predominantly down to the son, one of those many children that George III and Charlotte had. One of their sons became George IV, and he was a very bougie boy. He became king in 1820 and immediately set about turning his mum's old house into a palace. Like I said, very bougie boy, wanted big fancy palace. So he hired the most famous architect of the time, a guy called John Nash. And yeah, I
feel like John Nash designed some stuff in Dublin. I have a feeling like I've heard that name before.
They set about going way over the budget. They spent tens of millions of pounds, well, the equivalent today of tens of millions of pounds. But kind of screwed himself over, really, because he never got to live in the finished version of Buckingham Palace because he died before it could be finished. So this huge grand palace was created and then no one lived in it. In fact, the very first monarch to live in Buckingham Palace is Queen Victoria, the monarch who was reigning during this game in the 1860s.
That's crazy though, no? He built himself this big ass glamorous house and then doesn't even get to live in it. Now, like, I'm an atheist, but if I believed in God, I would wholeheartedly believe this is divine intervention.
Okay, cool. Right, now this is an image of Buckingham Palace that we should all recognize, or a little bit more, like recognize it a little bit more. This is the the front of Buckingham Palace, up from Pall Mall. Here we're looking at the iconic balcony that the royal family. Today you will see images of the royal family coming out and waving to the crowds of people. That is this balcony right here. And that balcony is important. That was added during the reign of Queen Victoria. So during this time that we've got here in Assassin's Creed, during this time, Queen Victoria and her husband, Prince Albert, were very savvy in certain ways. They knew that the royal family needed some good PR. And they needed to be seen to be like interacting with the public, with their people, with their loyal subjects. So they had this balcony added as a way of them being able to go out and be.
Yeah, a lot of these places around the palace also look familiar to me because I watched The Crown. It was my little guilty pleasure. So like even this kind of like archway entry into that kind of like square is where all the shots of like all the important people in the series arriving in their limousines and whatnot.
Be seen by the people and sort of have that two-way interaction and that sort of relationship that is very important to the royal family today. Okay, awesome. Right, this is Westminster Abbey. I'm getting very excited about Westminster Abbey. This is the more iconic image, the sort of recognizable image of Westminster Abbey. It's the Great West Door. I mean, Westminster Abbey has a history dating.
You know what? Like I was actually looking at it, and you know what this doorway reminds me of a little bit. There's like an ancient, I think it's an ancient Egyptian place that is kind of very similar. Like it has like this massive door and these kind of like square little hollowed out spaces with a lot of statues around. I will try to find it, but it looks very similar.
All the way back to the 11th century, but most of the architecture of what stands today is sort of 13th to 16th century, apart from the Great West Door, which is even more modern, which is from the 18th century. It's from about 1745. Westminster Abbey is famous for its coronations. Every single monarch of Britain, England and then Britain, who has been crowned for the last 1,000 years has happened here in Westminster Abbey. There's some debate about whether Edward the Confessor was crowned here, but we know that William the Conqueror was. So I love that the first English king to be crowned at Westminster Abbey was a Frenchman. But yeah, so they're all crowned there, all the way up to King Charles III, who was our last monarch to be crowned here. All of them. It's amazing. Queen Victoria, obviously, was crowned here, and that was... It's funny, you read stories about it, and I don't think everything went that smoothly. Sort of 5 hours long. At one point, apparently, this is allegedly, Queen Victoria thought the service was over, so she tried to leave or something, and they're like, no, it's still going, it's still going. Also, a lot of burials. A lot of burials. People are always surprised by how many people are buried in the grounds of Westminster Abbey. So, you know, you ask people and they maybe say up to about 100 or something like that. No, we think approximately about 3,300 people are buried in the grounds of Westminster Abbey. That includes a lot of royals, obviously. We have Edward the
3,000 people. What the fuck? Where do they keep them? Like, how deep are the catacombs? I'm assuming there are catacombs.
There's actually a shrine to Edward the Confessor, and it was a real, a lot of people travel there still to visit Edward the Confessor's shrine.
Okay.
And it's not just royals. There's also some important, and less important, non-royals buried there, including characters that you see in the game, or you get to meet in the game, Charles Darwin and Charles Dickens. They're both buried in here. Now seems like a good time to have a little brief history lesson about Westminster. Technically speaking, if you're, about 1,000 years ago, if you were in Westminster, you weren't in London. The City of London and the City of Westminster were two separate cities.
Oh.
Still today, when you walk around, you'll see signs and it says, it says the street name and it'll say City of Westminster. A little bit later, there was already a settlement at Westminster, but it's mainly credited with Edward the Confessor in the 11th century, very famous sort of king of England. He wanted to establish his rule and his power over England. So he thought, he had a few cities to choose from, or towns, and he thought, London seems pretty important. It's got good trade routes, it's pretty powerful. I'm going to be near London. I'm going to set myself up near London. So he set up his own city up the River Thames, just up the River Thames from the City of London. And what does every king need, or every royal need, especially in the medieval period, when you're building your own town and city? You need a church, which is what became Westminster Abbey today. And you need a house, which is what is the Houses of Parliament, or...
What happened, scammer? Let someone come to scam things? Did you avocado them?
Or the Palace of Westminster as well today. So that was his church and his house, and that he created the City of Westminster, which was a separate city to the City of London. That was them, I should say. By the 1860s, very much all part of London.
What's next?
You can see over on the left, that's St. Margaret's Church. Another little cheeky church, why not throw that in? It's a very early medieval church as well. Had some cool weddings there. Samuel Pepys, the diarist, he was married there, as well as Winston Churchill and his wife Clementine. They were married there in the early 20th century. It's also where a figure called Oluda Equiano got baptized. He's pretty cool. If you don't know about him, look him up. He was a member of the Sons of Africa and a real leading figure in the abolition of slavery. Wow, yeah, this is Devil's Acre, the area sort of colloquially known as Devil's Acre. It's so strange to think that this area existed in Westminster, literally just up the road from Westminster Abbey and the Houses of Parliament.
I wonder what's there today, because I don't believe that the center of London looks like this today.
It's essentially just it was a small area of London in Westminster, a small area of streets that were incredibly impoverished, essentially a slum, what would have been known as a Victorian slum. It's not somewhere that a lot of people would have necessarily chosen to live. I mean, it's literally just a child rolling around on the floor there and chickens running around. And a lot of people don't know this, that Westminster is actually quite a low-lying area and quite marshy, and that's one of the reasons we're seeing all the water here. Devil's Acre was known for being very marshy. You have to understand that in the 19th century, the Victorians had this idea of the deserving poor and the undeserving poor. Which is pretty kind of heartless, really. So the deserving poor were people that were considered deserving of sympathy because they were poor by no means of their own. They were elderly, they had been orphaned, they were injured, they had disabilities. They were allowed to have our sympathy, they were allowed to have help because they were the deserving poor. Undeserving poor was a term used for people that they deemed didn't deserve sympathy and didn't really deserve help because they were poor. It was their own fault. It was seen as it was their own fault that they were poor, and therefore they got themselves into it. They had to get themselves back out. So safe to say it was very easy to fall through the cracks in Victorian London, and that's very much what we're seeing here in this portrayal of Devil's Acre. Although these guys look like they're having a good time, they're having a drink.
And so deserving poor and undeserving poor. What changed? I'm sorry. Have I slept for 100 years? Did something change?
Outside, this would be like a trendy bar now in London. Little like decking area.
Yeah. This is where all the hipsters go these days.
Devil's Acre essentially ended up getting replaced by a lot of sort of Victorian equivalent of council housing or charitable housing, especially the Peabody buildings. They came in sort of from around the 1880s. So a couple of decades after this is set, we have all this Peabody housing, which is still there today. You can go and find that in Westminster, and that is sort of on the grounds of what was Devil's Acre. Throughout the game, you will see lots of children running around, and that does seem pretty accurate. That is something whereby, although conditions for children were slowly, very slowly getting better for children throughout the 19th century, still a big issue in 1860s London. You have thousands of children, just sort of unhomed orphans, running wild, essentially.
Yeah.
It was actually named, somebody named it as one of the sins, one of the 7 curses of London, where all the sort of children just living on the street isn't great, obviously.
I mean, the whole attitude towards children, like the way that we kind of tend to fawn over children in today's age and really like treasure like their innocence and try to like shield them from the horrors of the world, and you know, even build fairy tales like the Santa Claus and stuff like that. Like before the dawn of the 20th century, that was not really a thing from what I understand. Like that's why you had a lot of children working in mines and factories and stuff, because we didn't really perceive childhood as this like magical time, something to be protected, something to guard, you know, because so many people and children specifically died trying to reach adulthood because there was such crazy mortality before the invention of vaccines, all of you anti-vaxxers. And yeah, people didn't care about children because most of them died. Most of them didn't reach adulthood. That's why people had 12 children, because out of the 12, maybe 3 survived, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, it's like, that's why you would see a lot of homeless and orphan children on the streets of cities in those days, because there was a very different attitude towards children and protecting youth and shielding them from horrors of the world. Ah, yeah, see, they were homeless, but at least they didn't have autism. Hi, Yorkie. Actually, you're from England. We are watching a real life historian talk about Victorian London, meanwhile walking around a recreation of Victorian London in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and I'm building stuff in Cities Skylines meanwhile.
You can see as well, like we've just left Devil's Acre and now we're in an entirely different place. Like street to street, it's just changed so radically. You see all these great posters on the wall. I love that detail of having all like the vintage,
medieval, like Victorian cities are a vibe, because it's still like, it still has like that medieval feel to it. Like, Okay, like the dirt, and but it's also for me like it's the stone and the cobblestone streets. Like it's not like today that everything is done by machines, so all the like walkways are so even. Like you have a lot of uneven stones because a lot of it was placed in by hand. So but that unevenness, the crookedness of the streets has I don't know, I see it as a very romantic kind of vibe.
Vintage to us now. Very, very modern posters. The 1860s all plastered on the wall, advertising music halls, theatres, probably some dodgy medicines and things.
Ooh. Yeah, I love places like that, to be honest. But there's not a great deal of them in Ireland because, to be honest, like Ireland, the resources were not dedicated to develop it in such a way. In most cases, sadly.
And just the streets being full of people, being really busy, also bustling, all the noise. Like that is exactly how I imagine Victorian London to be, but with more dirt and horse poo. Who knows what it would have smelt like? Blech.
Heptonstall Sylvia. Sylvia Heptonstall, okay. And Sylvia Plath is buried there. Cool. I loved Sylvia Plath when I was a depressed, emotionally disturbed teenager. I was reading a lot of Sylvia Plath. She was one of my idols.
Because here we go. We can see the Houses of Parliament there in front of us. This is and was the seat of power in England and then Britain for the last 1,000 years. This building's actually not that old at this point in the game. From about 1840 to 1830, Houses of Parliament are being rebuilt, and they're built in this like Gothic revival style to match and complement Westminster Abbey.
Oh, gorgeous.
Right, okay, here we are. There he is. There's Big Ben. Big Ben. Is it the most famous clock tower in the world? I think so, probably, right? It's definitely like a real symbol of London now, and also of Victorian London, is this great big Ben Tower, Big Ben Tower. The most important thing to know about Big Ben, and I tell everyone this, is that the tower is not called Big Ben. Shocker, I know. The bell is, specifically one bell, the biggest, largest bell in the tower is called Big Ben. The tower is actually now known as the Elizabeth Tower. I think, it was named after the late Queen Elizabeth II in 2012 to celebrate her Diamond Jubilee. So the tower is actually called Elizabeth Tower, and the bell is called Big Ben. And the rumour, this is very much a rumour. I don't know how reliable this is, but they say that it was named after Sir Benjamin Hall, who was sort of responsible for working on the tower and on the bell, and he was a big guy. So they were like, "You're a big guy, you're called Ben. This bell's really big." Like Big Ben.
Honestly, we should. The problem with Poland is that, and this is why also like I didn't see that many places like this here in Ireland because British occupation. I haven't seen that many places in Poland well preserved because World War II, Nazis. And it's like the two places that are part of my cultural identity got really decimated by history and neighbors, you know, so I don't know how much comparison we could do, you know? Because there's not that much left.
But you can also then immediately forget that because everyone calls it Big Ben. If you were to say to someone like, "Oh, I'll meet you by Elizabeth Tower," no one would know what you were talking about. So all of this would have been very new at this point. I don't know if it would have maybe looked a bit shinier than it does here, I don't know. But Big Ben only started ticking. The clock started ticking about just before 1860, I think. Then there was an issue because there was like a crack in the bell, so it didn't ring for a while. And I think they just spun the bell around and were like, so the crack wasn't the bit that was being hit. And they're like, fine, it's fine. But yeah, it's almost 100 meters high, Big Ben. But the clock hands are about 4 meters long or over 4 meters long. And apparently you can drive a double-decker bus through the clock face. I wouldn't try it.
She's being really funny there, right?
Okay, amazing. We're going inside Westminster Hall. This is really exciting. Look at it! Oh, with the sun coming in. This is genuinely like, it's so sad. They're not even actually there, but it's like really exciting and the sort of atmosphere is so good. So this is one of the few, this is like the remaining, sorry, this is what remains of the original Houses of Parliament. It roughly dates back to the 11th century. I'm not sure how much of it actually dates back to the 11th century, but like, it hasn't burnt down. It didn't burn down. Actually, it might have burnt down at some point. But yeah, this dates back to the 11th century. There was also renovation work done around the 14th century. Westminster Hall has seen so much massive history. This is where, like, a couple of good trials. This is where William Wallace was tried and was brought after the Scottish resistance to England. So Braveheart, Mel Gibson was here. I don't actually know if Mel Gibson has specifically, but you get it. And he was tried for treason. This is also where, in the 17th century, in 1649, King Charles I, was tried and condemned to death. He wasn't executed here, but this was where he was condemned to death. It's a massive, momentous moment in British history. Never happened.
Yeah, was this when the Protestants took over? Was this like the official split of the British religious thing? Like, they were no longer Catholic Christians to recognize the head of the church in Rome. They became Protestants with the head of the state becoming also the head of the church. Was that what that all was about?
Before, never happened since. Just racking my brain. Have we been beheaded any other kings? I'm not sure. But yeah, huge moment in history. So it's interesting because originally this started out Houses of Parliament, Palace of Westminster. It was the King's house. It was the Queen, it was where the royal monarch lived and ruled. But it hasn't always been friendly to the monarchs.
Touché.
Oh, it's also a bit more recent history. In 2022, it was in Westminster Hall where the...
Oh, no way. Did actually Assassin's Creed donate money for the restoration of the Notre Dame Cathedral? That's crazy.
Late Queen Elizabeth II was laid in state, so that's where her coffin was. Her coffin was sort of popped there, and anyone could come and pay their respects to Queen Elizabeth. And people turned up. People definitely turned up. Like, I don't know how many people they were expecting, but the queue at one point reached about 10 miles long, which is about 16 kilometers. It went all the way out round Westminster, over the bridge, down by the river, like massive, huge, long queue of people. And all they got to do was just walk past the coffin. They could look, but they couldn't stop, just walk past. And some people were waiting up to 24 hours to get in, including David Beckham. Well, he didn't wait 24 hours, but he did wait in a queue. But one thing's confused me here. Above the doorway, I don't know if that's technically a pediment, but above the doorway you can see sort of the coat of arms and then the sort of insignia, and you have two unicorns. If we were in Scotland, sure. Okay. Because basically within the sort of insignia and the royal coat of arms of Britain, we have a lion who represents England and a unicorn that represents Scotland. When the two countries joined and became sort of Britain or joined forces, we merged the two. So we had the unicorn for Scotland and the lion for England, and we put them together, which is why in Scotland, in some places, you will see these older coat of arms and insignia where you have two unicorns. or lots of unicorns, but if you're in England and London, you should, I believe, never see 2 unicorns.
Oh.
A moment of appreciation for the fact that the like national animal of Scotland is a unicorn. I love it. I absolutely love it. I feel like it's because
Oh shit! That's so interesting. I love that. Honestly, I feel like I should probably get into Assassin's Creed.
in the medieval period, unicorns had a slightly different reputation to what they do now. It was less rainbows and more like fierce kind of beasts. I love it. I'd rather have a unicorn than a lion. Why do you have a lion? Oh my gosh, okay, cool, we're Jacob. Oh, I'm gonna like stop immediately. Hang on, I've just spotted something. Postbox. Okay, we're now exploring as Jacob. And you can see a very recognizable, very distinct, very British icon there, the red postbox. That's wrong. That should not be here at this point.
I wonder, so like if the unicorns used to have a reputation for being like fierce and scary, and that's why they were the insignia of Scotland, like was it part of like ridiculing Scottish people to like turn the unicorn into like a whole like rainbow and colorful kind of a creature? And if that's so, is this why Scotland now hates trans people? Because they've already been kind of like made kind of like a gay icon with the unicorn, you know, so it's like they don't want to continue on that route. I wonder. Makes you think, right? I think I cracked it. I think I cracked it.
The 1860s, it should be green in color, if anything. So it was around the 1870s that they changed the sort of official color of postboxes to red. So this is wrong, should be green. Is that the nerdiest fact so far? Possibly.
I love that.
Oh, right, okay. Now we are just up the road from the Houses of Parliament and in an area called Whitehall. It's sort of a street called Whitehall, and the area itself is known as Whitehall. Nowadays, it's a lot of government buildings and war memorials. Love a good war memorial. That's actually something I have noticed. There's a lot less statues.
Yeah. What has
nowadays, got a lot of statues, a lot of war memorials. Obviously, you can't have memorials to the First and Second World War when the First and Second World War hasn't happened yet. So that's probably why it's not in the game. Whitehall connects Westminster, like Parliament Square and the House of Parliament up towards Trafalgar Square. And here we're seeing
there's a lot of these huge buildings. I was walking down there and I was so confused. I was like, where the fuck am I? Like it looks like they should be checking your ID just for entering the street. Like
that would be very new at this point and sort of still, I believe, maybe under construction. Very new is the Foreign Office. So the Foreign and Commonwealth Office is basically, was and is today, a UK government department that's kind of responsible for what the UK gets up to abroad and what British people are up to abroad. I believe the first stage of this building was finished in 1868, the year this game is set. So it should be looking very sparkly new, and it's kind of not.
Yorkie, I don't mean to offend your sense of national belonging, but I have to make that joke. Is that where all the war crimes were planned?
I think this is meant to be Downing Street. This is meant to be 10 Downing Street. I hope I'm right. So 10 Downing Street, you can't do this now. Like the whole road is blocked off. With police and everything. It's all very you don't go in there. That's sort of the base and the home of the British Prime Minister, has been since the early 1700s. It's kind of the like White House of the British White House, but White House might be slightly more impressive. So yes, this is where you would have had prime ministers like famous Victorian prime ministers, Disraeli, Benjamin Disraeli and William Gladstone would have been in here. David Lloyd George, the first and only Welsh prime minister we ever had. He was prime minister during World War One. And Winston Churchill, that's sort of where they would have been. It's a very, very famous spot. The name Whitehall might seem a bit strange, but it's actually named after a palace, another palace that was here. That's the thing about London, especially Westminster. There's palaces everywhere, or there were. You know, if you add up all the palaces that are there or were there, couldn't move for palaces. Whitehall Palace was this huge, mighty, like I think at one point it was the biggest palace in Europe or something.
Oh, shit.
And it started out life being called York Place, and it was the home of Cardinal Wolsey, who was the chap who was a friend of, and then very much not a friend of, Henry VIII. And after Cardinal Wolsey they got rid of him, Henry VIII nabbed it, and that was around 1530. And took it for himself and his new queen, Anne Boleyn, and sort of, took it over, and I believe expanded it.
It's gorgeous,
so it's a huge,
isn't
mighty
it?
palace. And it's one of the reasons why I believe it was Henry VIII who sort of gave the Houses of Parliament over, or the Palace of Westminster as it was, over to Parliament, because he was like, that's all right, I've got Whitehall, which was literally just up the road, around the corner. So Whitehall became this real centre of English power. It was, anyway, until about 1698, when there was a fire. You see, there's a running theme here. There was a fire, burnt basically the whole place down. Whole of Whitehall was gone. Absolute, tragedy that this building doesn't exist anymore. Apart from one sort of surviving part that's clinging on, which is Banqueting House. Banqueting House was built under James I by a very famous architect at the time called Inigo Jones, who we will probably hear more about later. Inevitably, must do. Yeah, Banqueting House, very, very fancy. That still exists, and you can, I believe, visit that at certain times when it's open to the public. And it was actually outside Banqueting House where King Charles I, who we mentioned earlier, he was tried for treason and condemned to death in the Houses of Parliament in Westminster Hall. It was outside Banqueting House in 1649 that he was actually beheaded. They built this special platform and made him climb out a window on this really cold day. I believe it was in January. It's a really cold day. And he was beheaded in front of the public. So again, another building that, has some good connotations with the royal family, and royal family had a good time there. Also had some pretty bad times there.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic statue of King Charles I on a horse. It was created before he died, and it's actually London's oldest bronze statue. So it's actually looking down a Whitehall, not only towards Parliament, but also towards Banqueting House, where he was beheaded. So it's quite poignant the way that it's pointing. Now it's in the centre of a massive roundabout that's here. And as I said, it gets very much overlooked by Trafalgar Square, directly behind it. Amazing. Okay, this is another place where it looks very similar today. Oh, we got struck by a horse. This is why you should look each way before you cross the road, Evie. Yeah, if you were to visit Trafalgar Square today, it looks pretty much exactly like this. Trafalgar Square was built in 1840, so again, pretty new. This should only be about 20, 30 years old at this point. It was built to commemorate a British victory in 1805 at the Battle of Trafalgar, whereby we beat the French and the Spanish as part of the Napoleonic Wars. And as you can tell, we really, really wanted to make sure, or they really, really wanted to make sure that nobody forgot it. And at the top there, right at the top, you can just about see him at the top of this column.
Hi, you're right, Yorkie. To be honest, sometimes I don't even know if I'll make it to the stream. Yesterday, for example, I was supposed to be streaming and finish up my progress in Cities Skylines, and I didn't because I was so tired. I completely depleted myself of energy. I picked up my husband from work and then I went to sleep. So yeah, that's why I couldn't stream yesterday. And today morning as well. I was doing the Cities Skylines, but I'm having a moment where being on stream, I feel I want to talk to you guys and communicate, and even we watch things where I'm trying to react and stuff, but every now and again I just have a day where I just feel I just don't want to talk. I don't want to be with anyone, do anything, and every now and again it's it just hits me and I just need a reset. So that's why then I just missed the stream. But today I'm here in a decreased capacity because I'm not on camera, but I'll be back in full strength one day. It's an always constant up and down with ADHD. But anyways, thanks for popping in. Anyways, say hello to Jim and enjoy your evening.
That's about 50, 60 meters high. We have Vice Admiral Horatio Nelson. So he was the chap who led the victory at Trafalgar. And he did such a good job that we put him on a massive column that's now known as Nelson's Column in Trafalgar Square. And he, again, is also looking down Whitehall towards Parliament. Unfortunately, he died at the Battle of Trafalgar, which I think might be also why he's sort of commemorated so much here. And he was a very battle-hardy guy. What I love about this statue is that it's quite hard to see, but if you do get a good clear shot of it, you see that, you know, he's missing an arm at this point. He had like no sight in one of his eyes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like I know it doesn't seem like it, but I am an introvert, you know? And for me, streaming is like spending time with friends, which I love to do it, but I just need to recharge sometimes. So yeah, anyways, bye.
It's because he'd seen a lot of battles, and was in a bit of a state by the time of the Battle of Trafalgar, where he was shot dead by the French. And at the bottom, you see the 4 lions. Again, England, we love lions because they're, you know, native. We have them running around everywhere. Yeah. And then you have the 4 panels around the base of the column, and these are said, the lions and the panels are said to have been made from the cannons and the guns that we captured from the French after the battle. They were melted down to create these statues and the panels, which each of the panels show a different sort of scene from battles that Nelson was in. Okay, I love this. You see a jaunty little tune being played and some people dancing. This guy's really getting into it in the middle of the puddle as well. So you will see something similar to this today, more up on that top bit in front of the National Gallery. You'll often see performers, buskers, people performing, and if it's good enough, you'll get people dancing and like often circled round, like sort of crowded around them, taking videos. And so I love this because it sort of shows that maybe things haven't changed an awful lot in terms of the people in London.
Cute.
Like we still love a good little tune and to have a little boogie. They're loving it. Look at them.
Oh, that's cute. Ima, it rains a lot here. I think you're underestimating how often it rains here.
This, I believe, is Piccadilly Circus. It looks very different now. It's interesting because up until now, most of the places we've been, you know, look pretty similar today. This looks very different today. Piccadilly Circus, circus just refers to like a circular open space. It doesn't even specifically refer to a roundabout. It just means a circular open space. Which is why I have Piccadilly Circus, Oxford Circus. But at the end of the day, I feel like Piccadilly Circus is really famous. It's just a junction. It's just where loads of roads meet and a tube station pops out there. Like it's just a junction. So it's funny that it's that famous. I mean, it's an important meeting of roads. It's an area like in the heart of the West End. That's where we are now, in the heart of the West End. Got theatres nearby, which obviously means you've got good restaurants and shops as well. Like a lot of tourists in this area. Like this is definitely a place, if you visit London and you're doing a good amount of tourism, you're going to end up in Piccadilly Circus at some point. Also nowadays, home to, I believe, the largest Waterstones in the world. I mean, support your local...
Apparently the tube under the Piccadilly Circus is crazy.
Local bookshops, obviously, the local independent bookshops, but if you also like Waterstones, the bookshop, then head to Piccadilly Circus because there's a massive one there. So by this point, Regent Street has been built, but Shaftesbury Avenue hasn't. I think that's why it looks so different. So the road junction and everything changed about a decade after this when they built Shaftesbury Avenue. also what really makes Piccadilly Circus oh my God, guys, there's horse poo.
It's a poo. It's a poo.
There is horse poo on the road. Historically accurate. Well done. We just need about 1,000 more tons of that. What I always think of as really recognizable as Piccadilly Circus, or to recognize Piccadilly Circus, is this Eros statue, this statue of Eros. But that's not added at this point. No, it's not here. That didn't come into by the 1890s. But yeah, you have this statue, and it's a real good meeting point. If you're meeting anyone at Piccadilly Circus, you meet by the statue of Eros. Cool water fountain there. It's definitely something that existed in Victorian London. It helped spread cholera, I believe.
Oh shit.
There was one particular water fountain that was quite famously spreading cholera.
Oh no.
I love as well is that you see this here, like this is.
I love how like today we are buying water with vitamins, minerals, supplements and stuff. Back then you get water with cholera.
These are the buses. You see this, like London is famous for its double-decker buses.
I wonder
and its big
if, like, in order to get the cholera, you had to pay extra.
red buses. But at this point, those don't exist. So buses or omnibuses, as it's given the proper name, were like this. They were almost like big carriages pulled by horses. These were only pulled by two. I think sometimes they were pulled by more. And almost like double-decker carriages. And they're always covered in advertising. So the whole adverts on the side of buses is not a modern thing.
That's cool.
This, much more recognizable than Piccadilly Circus. This is Covent Garden. Amazing. Anyone that's visited London, most likely you've been to Covent Garden. All these loads of crowds of people, absolutely accurate. These market stalls and everything. Like Covent Garden for hundreds of years has just been buzzing, just full of people. Oh, I love it. You'll notice it is not a garden. Hasn't been for a very long time. In the 1200s, in the 13th century, it would have looked very different here. It was just fields, I believe, owned by Westminster Abbey. The name Covent Garden comes from what was originally here in this area, which was a convent. So convent became covent, that's where we get Covent Garden. You'll have street entertainers in this area here in front of St. Paul's Church. You always have entertainers and a crowd watching. It's great. You still get, although it's not a fruit and veg market, you still get that buzz, that crowd, that atmosphere. You'll see what's kind of hard to see here with all the market stuff, the stalls and things going on. But the main Covent Garden that we recognise today, and you can see here, the big structure, that was created in the 17th century, early 17th century by Inigo Jones. I knew he would come back up again. Built by Inigo Jones as a sort of big public square and piazza. Like, this is a really new, modern idea at this time to have these like piazzas. It felt very, continental Europe to have these big open piazzas, all very lovely. It was a bit of an experiment to see if it worked in London, and it very much did. And then it's after the Great Fire of London in 1666, where the City of London is trying to rebuild itself. So more and more people head to Westminster, to Covent Garden, to sell their wares and to buy their wares. So that's when the Covent Garden became famously a very big fruit and veg market. That's in the late 17th century. So there's just a big open pig carcass. Ooh, that's nice. Yeah, let's stop next to there, shall we? Hopefully no open pig carcasses if you visit Covent Garden today. If you do, there's not normally there, I promise. Yeah, to be having them selling fruit and veg here, very, very apt. You won't see any of that here today, though, sadly. If you go to Covent Garden now, there's restaurants, so you can buy food.
Yeah, I love it. I love all the I associate it with Victorian times, but I don't know if it's Victorian. This glass work that you see over there on the little hallway thingy. And in botanic gardens, I just love like the little like iron work with the kind of like swirly iron pieces and then the glass in between. Oh, it's just so gorgeous. We have a huge botanic garden in Dublin, and it has these Victorian, I hope Victorian, styled greenhouses, and they're massive, and they are in that style that they have like these iron pieces kind of like meandering between the glasses and in this kind of like dome shape style. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's great.
Yeah, you can see Covent Garden looks very similar to this today, which is awesome to see. It is amazing, and it is a beautiful building. It's sort of so touristy that you almost like have become a bit jaded by it, but actually it is gorgeous building. In the 18th century, so the century before this, it was also a famous red light district. There was actually a pamphlet produced, regularly produced and updated, that was called Harris's List of Covent Garden Ladies. And that was basically if you were a young gentleman in London, you had this pamphlet and it told you about all the sex workers that were working in the area. Oh, and some people drinking what I hope and assume is tea. Very British, or you'll be drinking your tea. You're probably more likely to find coffee places in Covent Garden now, sadly. Amazing, okay. Now we're on the Thames. We're on the River Thames on a boat. And the first thing you notice is just how busy the river is. Full of boats and more boats. Some barges, some ships, just a lot of naval vehicles. And that is pretty accurate. Like at this point, London is a huge port. People forget that London's a port, but it's a huge port, possibly the world's biggest. And oh, great view of the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben there.
Oh, nice.
If you see any of the red sails on boats, this would have been a really common sight in the 1860s if you were looking out onto the Thames, because they are the Thames barges. They were basically used as like little whippy boats to get in between all the other boats to move cargo around, basically. But yeah, they had this iconic red sails to them. And you also see lots of coal barges.
You see, this is what I want to imagine for Concordia here. Like, because we have these like relatively low bridges, like here, yeah? So obviously like a massive ship cannot go through. But I still would like to see something like a barge or at least a gondola or something like that go there. That's what I want to see.
Now, you know, this is, like I said, everything's running on coal. This is the Industrial Revolution. So you need a lot of coal. That could come in via trains, it could come in via the roads or canals, but it also came in through ships. Like, I think bigger ships would sort of come in close to London or near to London, and then these smaller ships and barges and boats would go and collect coal and bring it into Central.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a very similar solution for Concordia, because like even like like by the time that we build an actual port, it's gonna be a while. I know the DLC comes out next week, but like I've got all of this and then all of that and then all of this and then yeah, once all of this is done, the port is gonna be somewhere here. I also kind of want to have a Japanese city here. It's gonna be a while before I build the actual port, but we can have like little bit of industry. Like I want to have a bit of industry here, so we can maybe have a mini port or something like that. It definitely has a better access, because even if you see here, like we have a little bit of like a docking place over here, then we will have a little ferries over here. But it's basically a river. Like even over here. Here I want the Spanish Mediterranean style city, but the access to the sea is over there. So by the time we even get to that point, if my PC can handle it, because honestly, I have a feeling like the game is stuttering, and I only built this much, so I am planning to expand my RAMs. I'm gonna get more RAM sticks, but let's see how it goes.
This is at a point where, you know, the sun never sets on the British Empire, and the British Empire is like a third of the land mass of the world, or whatever, you know, big, important British Empire. And part of that empire was trading goods, like the to and froing of goods from the empire. So got things like tobacco, brandy, wine, rice, ivory, sugar, tea, cotton, all coming in and out to London. It's kind of crazy to think now, because since then we have sort of it got a bit too busy. So we kind of cleared the way and pushed a lot of these boats out of sort of that central area of London. It's been said that by this time, the Thames is so busy that you could cross the Thames just by like hopping from boat to boat, which is something that you get to do in the game, which I think is a really cool touch.
Oh, cool! Oh my god, I would love to do that. Are we gonna play Assassin's Creed Syndicate? Are we putting it on the menu?
Right, okay, so we have travelled up the Thames and now we are in the City of London. We can see you still get views like this in the City of London, which I absolutely love. You're walking up these streets and you see at the end, da 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 da,
okay,
St. Paul's Cathedral. So St. Paul's here looks like this huge, gorgeous, big, massive building, a very, very imposing building again. And that is pretty accurate to today as well. Like, it kind of still takes my breath away sometimes when you're sort of just walking around and then you turn a corner and you're like, ooh, like there's St. Paul's. It's absolutely beautiful. There have been lots of different versions of St. Paul's Cathedral. All churches stood on the grounds of where St. Paul's Cathedral is today. This current version is from the 17th century. It was built by Christopher Wren after the Great Fire of London. So the Great Fire of London raged through the city of London, the square mile, destroyed almost everything. St. Paul's Cathedral, the one that was there at the time, burnt down, and along with a load of other churches, all burnt down, and then it fell upon Christopher Wren and some others, Christopher Wren, to rebuild the City of London. So he rebuilt St. Paul's Cathedral. It's this great mighty structure. So yes, I think this one was, this St. Paul's Cathedral was sort of finished in about 1710. There are some important people buried in St. Paul's Cathedral as well. We have Horatio Nelson, off of Nelson's Column, who we saw earlier. He's buried here after he died at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. Also buried here is Arthur Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington, not to be confused with Arthur Weasley, also equally important, but fictional. But the real Duke of Wellington is buried here, and he is most famous for being the hero of the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, where they defeated Napoleon, and also being Prime Minister twice. So yeah, he was a pretty important guy, and so he's buried in a pretty important place, St. Paul's Cathedral. One thing I would say is that in the Victorian times, in the 19th century, the City of London was sort of famously gross. Lots was written about how gross and dirty the streets were. I've already talked about all the horse poo and the fact that there should be horse poo everywhere because of all the horses around producing like 9 kilos poo every day. But yeah, people described as almost sticky mud that would be on the ground in London, made up of just a lot of stuff you don't really want to think about, and just being trodden and spread all across the city. So I would say Assassin's Creed is basically too clean. So we had so much horse poo in London. I know I keep talking about horse poo, I'm sorry, that it actually led to something in the 1890s called the Great Horse Manure Crisis. And people wrote in newspapers about how like, oh, in 50 years time we're going to be like submerged with going to be meters of it
Same
and
thing
the
happened in
disease.
Warsaw. Oh my god! I wonder if this is something something that was very common across many European cities.
It's going to spread, and oh my god, what are we going to do? Little did they know we were about to have cars.
Yeah.
Cars came along, horses left, most of the horses left, and then we didn't have a crisis of horse manure anymore. As I see a statue there, that is a statue of Queen Anne, who reigned in the 18th century, early 18th century. Again, if you've seen the movie The Favourite, it's Olivia Colman in The Favourite, that's Queen Anne.
Oh.
This will actually be, the one we're looking at here, will be the original one, or a computerized version of the original one, because it actually got so damaged and eroded and whatnot that it needed to be replaced towards the end of the 19th century. So this should be the original one. Yeah, she's sort of standing guard outside of St. Paul's. For Queen Victoria, though, another queen, for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee in 1897, they had this huge procession. There's actually video footage, really early video film footage of this procession that went through London towards St. Paul's Cathedral for this big celebration and ceremony to celebrate her Diamond Jubilee. However, at this point, she didn't lead the carriage. She was getting on in years, clearly wasn't fussed. So they had this big ceremony and service for her inside St. Paul's Cathedral, but she just stayed outside in the carriage.
Oh.
You know, I'm sure they cracked a window for her.
Oh god. That's kind of hilarious to think about. Right.
And here we are at the Bank of England. Sneaking into the Bank of England. She's got a cheque to pay in. Check on her savings.
Uh-huh.
Because by this point, by the 1860s, London is becoming a huge world financial centre. You can see that from the Bank of England. It's an absolutely beautiful building. It's essentially the central bank.
Raven says, funny how it shifted from horses for peasants and carriages for nobles, and now it's carriages for peasants and horses for nobles. Aren't you smart, Corvida?
Of the UK was and is. And the British financial systems just run out of here.
But that's very clever.
You can tell I really know a lot about finance. This whole structure was built in the early 1800s by John Soane, an architect called John Soane, who really created this sort of the iconic look of the outside of the Bank of England and all this beautiful grand interior as well. John Soane's work on the Bank of England doubled the size of the bank. So that's how well they were doing. They needed a lot more space, and he made this huge, huge grand building, really made a statement with this Bank of England. Unfortunately, in the early 20th century, they needed to expand again or improve again and do some renovations. So a lot of the interior was demolished and rebuilt, but the exterior has remained the same. All of this interior, I assume they've taken from photos and images that we have that remain of the Bank of England at this time in the 1860s. And from what I've seen, it does look really similar. Right, we keep seeing a lot of top hats. I mean, obviously, this is Victorian London. Pretty much every man's wearing a top hat, or every sort of middle-class man is wearing a top hat. And that's because top hats were very middle class and upper class. They were a sign of respectability. It sort of tells people, it tells the world I'm middle class. I'm a gentleman. Look at my fancy top hats that I have on. But also top hats I can imagine
Monopoly
are a
man.
massive pain because they're quite big, they're quite bulky. You're in London, you're trying to move around, you've got to get some transport, you've got to get a train, a bus maybe. So what I love is that there are some designs out there that were supposed to help a man about town with his top hat dilemmas. My favourite one, which I would probably need, is on hot summer days. Men were still expected, outside in public in the summer to be wearing these top hats. So your head could get pretty darn hot and warm under there. So there is a design for a hat that has a little ventilation bit in it at the top so that you can be a smart gentleman walking around town, but then also have, imagine steam coming out of there to keep your head cool. Like I said, I don't know how much they were used, but I love that top hats were such a necessity that these designs were required or were thought up. And I think we should bring it back. I don't know why people aren't wearing top hats.
Ugh, they are. It's just they're lower now, and they're basically fedoras, and they're worn by a particular nasty part of society. I want a top hat too.
Right, we are now leaving our tour of the Bank of England. We've paid in our check and we're off to say hello to the mayor. So what you can see in the distance there is is Mansion House, which is the official residence and base of the mayor of the City of London, not to be confused with the London mayor. The City of London mayor is more of a ceremonial position. I don't want to get in trouble, but as far as I'm aware, it's more of a ceremonial position. But that's his base there, Mansion House. Again, columns and a nice pediment. Very, very early Victorian, that. Okay, all right, and now we're Jacob. Jacob's come in. He's got bored. He wants to have a walk around. So we're still very close to Mansion House here. You'll see you have the Bank of England, Bank of England, which is all about the finances. You've got Mansion House, which is the base of the mayor of the City of London, and then just over here we have the Royal Exchange, which is all about trade. So this is the absolute heart of the City of London. So it's like trade, finance, it's where all the business stuff is happening. It's actually, the entrance was inspired by the Pantheon in Rome, and you can really see that. It's called the Royal Exchange because it was officially opened by Queen Victoria in 1844. So again, only a couple of decades, about 20 years before this game is set. Although I believe the original version of the Royal Exchange was actually opened by Elizabeth I, so it's probably more likely to be called Royal Exchange because it was opened by Elizabeth I. But that was the previous incarnation. Yeah, so the original Royal Exchange was established in the 16th century as basically an area where merchants from all over the world, all over Europe and all over the world could gather and hang out and do their merchant thing. In around 1600, they actually added shops to it, which makes me wonder,
guys, the merchants are merchanting.
Whether it was like, is this Britain's first shopping mall? It's a big, important building in London, so of course there is a history of fires. Most importantly, 1666, the Great Fire of London, which destroyed the Royal Exchange that was standing there at the time and was rebuilt. However, there was then another fire in the 1830s, around a similar time that the Houses of Parliament are burning down in Westminster. You've got the Royal Exchange burning down. Don't know what they must have thought. What was going on? So it was rebuilt, and that is why you have Queen Victoria opening it again. So because it's the new incarnation of the Royal Exchange. And we walk inside here. It's got this gorgeous courtyard, which is now all covered over. Nowadays, it's not open to the elements anymore. And by the 19th century, this is sort of, there's office space, it's where meetings happen. It's essentially like a 19th century co-working space. It's a Royal Exchange. So the monument to the Great Fire of London, it's about 60 meters high. It is pretty prominent. Like, London isn't a very tall city, especially in the 1860s. So, you know, it's very prominent, really stands out. And it's to commemorate, or commemorate the wrong word, like to remember the Great Fire of London that tore through the city of London in 1666. They made the monument, the column, as tall as the distance to the start of the Great Fire of London. Does that make sense?
Oh,
so the fire started very, very close to this monument in Pudding Lane, and just it was a mixture of the weather, the fact there was some wind, it was very dry. A lot of the houses at the time were made of wood. This was a very, very old area of the city, the historic area of the city of London. So the fire just absolutely tore through the city. It raged for 4 days and destroyed more than 80% of the city of London. It's absolutely destroyed. Like, it's hard to imagine what that must have been like. However, my favorite story is from the Great Fire of London is Samuel Pepys, and how he decided, I better protect my cheese. Samuel Pepys saw the fire coming, and rather than fleeing with his family, he decided, first of all, to bury a big wheel of Parmesan in his garden, because, you know, that was fancy cheese, that was expensive, and he wanted to keep it safe. So he made sure he buried it in the garden.
I love that. Oh my God, this man has got priorities.
So Spitalfields Market is a really historic market that's been there for centuries. Strange name, Spitalfields. It was named basically because originally it was some fields near a 13th century hospital called St. Mary's Spital. Why St. Mary's Spital was called St. Mary's Spital, I'm not actually entirely sure.
Oh my fucking
What's
God.
interesting is that after the Great Fire of London, when the City of London is recovering from this terrible event, it means that markets and places outside the city start to kind of flourish. And that's what happened here in Spitalfields Market. It became this huge fruit and veg market in London's East End, where people who previously would have either sold goods or gone to markets in the city instead came to London's East End. It was sort of formally approved by King Charles II in the late 17th century as well to have this official market at Spitalfields. So Spitalfields Market is based in an area, it's London's East End, but it's based in an area called Whitechapel, which you may know is very famous from the Whitechapel murders and Jack the Ripper, but there's more going on in Whitechapel throughout history and today than Jack the Ripper, I promise you. It's in a real mixed area. In the 1860s, it's sort of predominantly a working class area of London, sort of famously a working class area of London, I would say. And there are a lot of people. That's the one thing. There are a lot of people here, but I would say you almost need more. Like in the mid 1800s, it said you had about 220 people per acre. Who works in acres? Wow. But just a lot of people. And in one area of Whitechapel, you had sort of like an average of 9 people per household.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, there was this real fear at the time, especially from the middle and upper classes, of this sort of growing criminal class, which absolutely just like fueled this fear of London's East End and the crime and the murders that were happening there. But at the same time, there was also this almost sick fascination with it, and middle and upper classes would travel to these areas of London as some kind of like sick kind of tourism almost, to be like, let's go see where all this crime.
It's the original true crime girlies.
Crime is taking place. Like, isn't it shocking?
Well, I think she's a professional historic guide of London. Like, she does it for a living.
Yeah, we see this here. We see lots of people out on the street working, milling around, selling things. But there was a real fascination with this sort of area and other areas of London, but the East End for sure, to the point that towards the end of the 19th century, a little bit later than this game is set, we have Charles Booth. And Charles Booth is a social reformer who sets about investigating London, and specifically the working class areas of London. And he starts in the East End, and he creates this thing called the life and labour of people in London. And it includes a map, a detailed map, where he colour codes the streets, literally like house by house almost, colour codes them according to what class he's decided they are. Like I said, Victorians love a class system, and they love being able to categorize people. This was hugely popular at the time. And according to his work, it showed that something like 30% of people in London were living in poverty at this time, in the late 19th century, a little while after the game is set. But it was also in his work that he described things like, you know, people are out in the streets, there's dancing, like if someone starts busking or someone starts playing music, like any excuse, people will be up and dancing around. So there's sort of two sides to it. See here, you see lots of people dancing around to some music, just sort of impromptu, having a good time in the street. That's very much what Charles Booth was alluding to about this area, about the East End. God, oh, great Victorian pub. We have the Victorians to thank for like modern pubs. They had all sorts, pubs, taverns, gin houses. It was very much the pub, the public house. It was a staple of British. Oh, we're going in. Yeah, we're going inside. Get yourself a drink, son. So, I mean, I feel like this is a good place to leave it. We've done a mammoth walk around London,
Yeah,
and now Jacob's going to settle in and get himself a pint or something. Pubs, very common around London, all over London actually, and you can still find some really good classic old historic pubs. Even ones that predate this, like pubs existed before the 19th century, but they're just, the Victorians really went for it. So there we go. Thank you for joining me on this historical walking tour through Victorian London, through the footage from Assassin's Creed Syndicate. This is actually a tour you can replicate in modern day London if you wanted to. It's long though, so make sure you're wearing sensible shoes. Now, if you want to learn more about the real history that's portrayed in the Assassin's Creed games, make sure you check out the Echoes of History podcast.
That was really cool. Let's give it up for the lady who told us about history. Whee! Okay. So we heard this one. I'm thinking like what to put on next, because to be honest, like I will have to wrap up the stream like soon, because I have my daily raids to do in World of Warcraft. So I will probably be finishing this, what I'm doing here, tomorrow. But I got the biggest part out of the way. So, and I was working on it today, yesterday. Well, I've been really enjoying it, and to be honest, like I really wanna reach my goal. I wanna get my mages item level to 740, and also I really enjoy doing the raids with Raven, which I told Raven I want to do it with him today, 9-10 p.m. So like I think I'm gonna wrap up here, because I still have to make food. So I'm gonna take that 20 minutes, go make the food for Nev, and in 20-30 minutes I'll meet Raven for our WoW session outside of the stream. So I think, guys, we're gonna wrap up here. Thank you so much. This is what we've done. We finished the lower key area, which is looking really cool. I have to say, I'm glad I opted out of the magazines and I opted in for this like marina sort of a vibe thing here. It's really, really cool. It serves absolutely no function whatsoever, but doesn't it just look so gorgeous? Um, Thank you so much. If you guys enjoyed yourself, like, subscribe, drop a comment, let me know that you're watching. I will probably be back tomorrow with more of the same, because I'm still working away on it, and I have to have the episode ready on Tuesday, which at this point doesn't seem like it's gonna happen, but I'll do my best.